I believe each person is drawn to a geography, whether it's a mountain or an ocean or a desert. There lives in nature that which provides one with solace, but also awakens the muse. There also lives in a city, in a skin of glass and steel, with a heartbeat of pistons or a time clock, through arteries of skyways and streets, another living force. A city lives through its people, and its spirit is housed in their stories.
Hi, my name is Kevin Kling, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Proud denizen of the upper Midwest, the North Star State, the nation's icebox.
We're not the East, steeped in history and tradition, or the West, with elbow room and endless possibilities. We are truly the Midwest, the best of both worlds. Maybe that's why there's a proverbial sense of the adolescent about Minneapolis. No, I think it has to do with the landscape. I think it has to do with the waterfall. Now, it wasn't the confluence of the Mississippi and Minnesota rivers, or the rich soil that lured people to this area. It was the waterfall, first as a sacred site, and later as a source of power for a changing nation. Now, the first people here had a lifestyle that followed the natural course of the seasons and migration of game. Nations like the Dakota and Ojibwe gathered on these banks for hundreds of years. In 1680, Franciscan friar Father Louis Hennepin came up the Mississippi River, both to convert the indigenous people to Christianity, but also in search of a new route to China and Japan. Father Hennepin reported a falls of grand proportion, rivaling Niagara in scope and beauty. Now, lying is a sin, but exaggeration seemed to have been encouraged. After all, funding is funding. Father Hennepin named the falls St. Anthony in honor of the patron saint of travel, oppressed people, and seekers of lost articles. Given that he recently suffered a summer with the heat and mosquitoes, a bitter winter held hostage by the Dakota, and the fact there were no Chinese people in sight, one can see why he went with St. Anthony. Father Hennepin then departed to report on the majesty of Iowa. Over 100 years later, Zebulon Pike, of Zebulon Pike fame, arrived here before he peaked in Colorado. Under President Thomas Jefferson, Pike was selected to command an expedition of the new territories acquired in the Louisiana Purchase. Pike saw the opportunity in the lands surrounding the Minnesota and Mississippi rivers and quickly made a treaty with the Dakota. Pike bought this land for a few $100s in trade goods and a pledge that the Dakota could hunt here indefinitely. But later, when white settlers moved in, the Dakota were not allowed to hunt here. Sadly, this was one of many broken promises that opened the upper Mississippi River Valley.
The result was an outpost nestled where the Mississippi and the Minnesota rivers meet, called Fort Snelling, built in 1819. So how did Minneapolis become a city?
1, 2, 3. 3, 2.
It's a good story. And like all good stories, there are many versions.
2.
One goes like this. In the
He
1830s,
dressed up
many
2,
people
right?
tried to acquire
2 times?
Water meant power. Power to turn wheels, grind grain, and turn saws. Fort Snelling's commander, Joseph Plimpton, tried to grab the land east of the falls. But to his surprise, the post storekeeper, Franklin Steele, had beat him to it. Legend has it that Steele snuck across the river in the night, quickly built a cabin, made breakfast, and offered to share it with Plimpton's men. Steele used his claim to build a sawmill, and the town was called St. Anthony. John H. Stevens built the first house on the West Bank, what would become in time Minneapolis, although it appears he already had neighbors. Soon a thriving town sprung to life. Sawdust, flour dust, the smell of cut pine and milled wheat, a fresh paint and horse manure. Now, what do we name our new city? Charles Hope suggested the semi-indigenous name derived from Minnehaha, falling water, with the Greek affix polis, a city. The name was favorably received, St. Anthony united, the H dropped out, and the town was called Minneapolis. Our country was growing, and the need for lumber great. In harvesting the vast forests of the north, the river was harnessed not only to transport the log, but also to turn the massive saws. Not everyone was impressed. One eyewitness stated, "The spirits and saints have now been driven off. The charms sullied. The entire vicinity is on the verge of becoming a temple to the gods of manufacture and trade." And not all the construction was above ground. A network of canals and tunnels crisscrossed each riverbank. In 1869, one miller even tried to tunnel underneath, but the tunnel suddenly collapsed, nearly destroying the falls. Charging ahead, an apron was built of wood to protect the falls. The papers read, "Minneapolis has spoken. Her motto is Excelsior and her course is onward. The falls will have an apron that will extend from shore to shore, turning the tumbling current into a smooth and gentle flow." Minneapolis was again full speed ahead with milling, logging, textiles, and logging and milling and milling and logging and textiles and milling and logging and milling and milling and milling. In 1878, the Washburn A mill exploded, killing 18 workers.
3 times.
Over one-third the Minneapolis milling capacity was destroyed, as well as a lumberyard, a roundhouse, and nearby homes. Minneapolis didn't miss a beat. Washburn saw the opportunity to modernize, and in no time, we boasted the largest flour production in the world. With the new jobs came a labor force, many from Europe, folks leaving hardships or persecution to try their luck in America. Well, where were they all going to live? Minneapolis had to grow. In the late 1800s, mass transit came by the means of streetcars, and with the advent of the streetcar, neighborhoods began to spring up, first spreading south on Washington Avenue to Cedar Avenue and Riverside, or northeast up there out by the lumberyard, don't you know? Now where you live depended upon your mode of transportation, ethnicity, and economic status, or dependent upon what part of the hog you ate. South Minneapolis was mostly Scandinavian and German, Northeast Eastern Europeans, and North Minneapolis was predominantly Jewish and African American. There was an area by the river under the Washington Bridge known as Bohemian Flats, mostly populated by lower-income families or recent arrivals from the current newest world. Bohemian Flats lacked conveniences like indoor plumbing. It nonetheless made up for it in rich characters and an active, if not eccentric, street life. Across town there were social clubs, lakes for swimming and boating, sports fields, Lake Harriet Band Pavilion, dance halls, Lake Street bustling with dime stores, bakeries, the Sears Tower, Miller's Ball Field, even Wonderland. Everywhere, churches and synagogues for worship. Orthodox, Conservative, Catholic, Baptist, Latter-day Saints, Greek Orthodox, Episcopal, Methodist, Lutheran, Lutheran American, Lutheran Finnish, Lutheran Slovak, Lutheran Norwegian, Missouri Lutheran Center, Lutheran Augustana Synod, Lutheran United, and Presbyterian. At night, the smells of food mixed with the lilacs, cabbage and sausage and potatoes, pierogies, dumplings, meatballs, soups and stews, ancestors to the hot dish, turnips, rutabagas, secrets from the homeland, breads and biscuits and groenkakas, strudels, pies, cornbread, beans, chicken, and sauerkraut, and sauerkraut, and sauerkraut, and sauerkraut. At night, the sounds of kids and dogs, kids